Different today. I came across this slide deck, Incisiv, which I have no connections to, by the way. I don't know too much about the company, but it was a 44-page deck that came out this month that gives a breakdown on digital maturity across restaurants that sit in the fast casual or in the QSR space. And so I thought, rather than me just write a few things down, why don't we go through this together and see some of the highlights live by looking through some of the slides here. So let's get rid of my ugly face here and bring this up so that we can actually have a chat through. Okay, so first of all, as I say, this is really about QSRs and fast casuals. There's a bunch of slides here that I am going to skip past. Some interesting information for sure here about just the way in which restaurants have rebounded, the proportion of delivery across fast casual and QSRs between delivery, takeout, and on-premise. All good stuff that I think we've seen out there. But perhaps the starting place for this would be actually here on slide 6, because what I find interesting here is, first of all, this piece around the proportion of digital orders. So fast casual is still behind QSR in terms of digital orders, but also fast casual, as you'd probably expect, is ahead of QSRs from an in-store order perspective. But both of them are consistent when it comes to phone orders. And one of the things that always surprises me in our conversations around off-premise, especially for those that perhaps aren't as familiar with the off-premise channel, is just still how important phone orders are to restaurants of all kinds. And so having a platform to enable you to be able to seamlessly get phone orders into your system is really, really critical. Okay, let's go on to this next one here. Mobile web is faring better than apps. So what you'll see here is that the framework for this presentation goes through each of these different categories. And so we're going to touch on each of these categories over the course of the next few minutes. And really what this is saying here is that if best in class is at the top and least mature is at the bottom, what you're seeing is where the desktop website is being perceived by customers and where the mobile app actually is positioned right now. And for most, I think most often, with the exception of perhaps digital ordering here, the desktop website has been deemed to be more effective or provide more functionality than the mobile app has in its own right. Now, bear in mind, this is an assessment that has been done by this company. And so you might agree, you might disagree. I don't know how much empirical data has been taken in relation to this, but it's an assessment across hundreds of different QSR and fast casual companies. And I think that is really just fascinating in its own right. But a lot of folks will often ask me, Carl, I need an app. I need an app. And I'll say, do you really need an app? Or do you need to make sure that you have got a mobile optimized website that can actually function as well as an app? So obviously large organizations, certainly some of the brands that you're going to see here, do indeed need to have both. But for the independents out there, having a mobile optimized website is still a really important piece when it comes to the functionality that you can actually service. Okay, let's move on. This next one here is talking about some of the gaps that exist across a number of these areas. So there's lots of areas to actually see progress, further levels of innovation happen. And, not a conference goes by where I don't hear someone say, we're still in the early innings of change. And I agree with them completely. But when you look at some of these items here across these 4 categories, you can see that exactly that is true. So for example here, availability of menu item status. So when you look at this one in the bottom here, the fact that actually whether an item is available or not is something that isn't available for the customer to see up front on only 15% of these restaurants is really fascinating for me. And only 15% of restaurants are actually providing that level of oversight. When it comes to digital ordering, only 22% of customers, 22% of restaurants that have been assessed here are allowing their customers to reserve online and pay at the store. Now, maybe you could say, well, the problem is you might get a bunch of folks that just don't show up. But I've seen that happen with regards to alcohol delivery. And people say that if you haven't got your appropriate ID, then there aren't any refunds. So I think there are ways past this one as well. But clearly, people being able to think about ordering ahead, reserving ahead, is actually something that only 22% of these restaurants are actually covering. And then when we talk about order fulfillment, 12% of these restaurants are allowing customers to receive a prompt to check in when to pick up their order. And that's interesting. I was at a Mendocino Farms yesterday and I spent 20, 25 minutes waiting for my order. And, no one really knew who I was. I was just waiting to see something appear on a shelf. So that's an interesting one. And then customer engagement and service, 11% of these restaurants allow customers to provide feedback for pickup and delivery experiences. 11% are not enabling some form of engagement to happen with them, with customers. That blows me away. And clearly we know loads of folks out there that are enabling that to happen. My friend Zach over at Ovation, we've got Alex over at Tattle, we've got Jan Pingo doing this kind of stuff. All of these things are allowing feedback to be generated through first party channels. And I think that is clearly a great opportunity there. Okay, let's move on. So as you'll see here, this is the approach that they've actually been utilizing. They've been assessing a bunch of attributes across each of these different areas here. I'm not going to go into the details of it, but they clearly have gone and assessed a bunch of different capabilities across a range of different restaurants. And so let's move on. And then they've given some awards out, and I'll touch on some of the brands that they've given some awards out to. And you'll see that there is clearly a link between those that they've categorized as a leader in terms of their revenue growth in 2020 and those that have seen only a 2% increase in revenue. So digital maturity, these are the names of the restaurants that have been deemed to be the most successful. There's 27 of them here. And, there's some clear names that I think we all know to be very accomplished in the space. Chick-fil-A stands out to me, Panera stands out to me for sure. But, when you also see Noodles and Company, Whataburger, Potbelly, these are great brands that are clearly being recognized here across digital maturity. So let's go into some of the categories that actually allow these restaurants to stand out in the way that they have. And for me, let's go to slide 18, because I think that one's kind of interesting in particular. So research and discovery, these are the ones that have really thought about how to differentiate themselves to enable customers to find them. So you'll see Taco Bell, Starbucks, Blaze, Chipotle, Applebee's, about 20 others or so there. Let's get into some of the reasons why those particular brands have stood out in some reason here. So as we look at this, areas of high growth, promotional visibility and store details. So here you're seeing that more restaurants now have a dedicated section for rewards on their homepage. You're seeing that 55% relative to 34% just a year earlier have visibility of detailed store amenities for branded store locations. So now they're actually able to say, oh, look, when you come to this location, these are the various different things that you're going to be able to engage with. We've all been to various different QSRs where there's an area for the kids to play, etc. That is a great way for you to be able to say, well, actually, which is the right store for me to visit. And then when it comes to promotional pricing and new launch offers, that being on the home screen, it's only 13%. It's only up 3% on the previous year. So that is perhaps a bit of a surprise, because obviously being able to provide promotions, especially on first-party interfaces, and helping people see what those offers are early, perhaps is an area of opportunity. Where we haven't seen a huge amount of growth is the availability of recent orders, real-time product availability, as I mentioned earlier, and the option to shortlist menu items based on dietary restrictions. Again, first-party ordering has a great opportunity to enable personalized profiling, to enable you to be able to say, based on what you've told me already, these are the items that make sense to you. You might recall something I shared, must be a few months ago, about the Taco Bell kiosk when I went in and quick little button to veggie mode, and suddenly all I get to see are options for vegetarian. Brilliant. Love that kind of stuff. Okay, let's keep going. We're 20 slides into the 44. I want to go to slide 21 next and highlight this here. Only 5% of brands currently help shoppers navigate through products according to their dietary preferences. So much like I was just saying, and you'll see this thing at the bottom here, you're able to actually use the app to say, this is what I would like to eat, and this is the stuff that I don't want to eat or can't eat or have some form of dietary restriction. Only 5% of brands enable that. Wow, that's crazy. Similarly, online exclusive menu items. We often talk about Zach Goldstein and Thanks and the importance of using first-party platforms for exclusivity purposes. Well, 75% of shoppers prefer to order directly from a restaurant, as we've seen from recent studies. Even DoorDash have told that. But as of now, only 5% of brands have online exclusive offerings. Big opportunity here, I'd suggest. Okay, let's go to slide 23. I feel the piece that was quite interesting for me here was around meal kit, DIY meal kits. 41% of consumers would purchase a DIY meal kit from their favorite restaurant. So when we're thinking about frequency of purchase, a chance for someone to not only buy dinner for tonight, but perhaps lunch for tomorrow or lunch for right now and dinner for later, that is something that perhaps is an opportunity for first-party channels to offer. It's good here to see that these other stats, 40% of restaurants adopting contactless and mobile payment. I think that has to be a given, right? That number has to keep on going up. And I would hope that as we see this survey and this being repeated in years to come, we'll see a lot more when it comes to that one. Okay, let's move on. I want to go to slide 24. Slide 24. Let's look at fast casuals here for a moment. 53% of fast casuals have an option to place bulk or catering orders, but only 9% of them embrace Apple Pay. Unlike QSRs, who have a 40% acceptance rate. So great to see fast casuals embracing the future for catering. Clearly, catering is having a huge rebound this year, which is exciting news. But similarly, Apple Pay not being accepted. I mean, clearly there's all the rates and the arrangements of working with Apple, but fast casuals might be missing out on a preference of Apple users to use their Apple Pay functionality. Okay, let's go to slide 20. Well, first of all, I'll just point out these brands for you to look at. These are the ones that Incisiv have said are the leaders in digital ordering, which I think is the ordering interface, right? The way in which someone is actually going through the ordering interface. And again, here you see some of the names that we saw earlier. There's Jersey Mike's, there's Panda Express coming out here, Mountain Mike's Pizza, Papa John's. So some good names again, a bunch of really important brands that many of us know and love. But let's go to slide 26. And we were just talking about Apple Pay. Look at the option to pay via PayPal, only 6%. So we haven't seen much interface of allowing PayPal to be a means of paying. They didn't do anything here, I don't think, around Venmo, but that's an interesting one. Is that a reason for why people perhaps would prefer more digital payment methods? Is that something that consumers are asking for? Perhaps we won't know unless we try it. Similarly, when you look at this piece here, the capability to offer digital tipping, that has been an area which has started to see a little bit more growth over the last year, which is great. And then this one, which I think is super important, the option to place future orders in advance, a big growth in comparison to 2020. I think that is something which is super exciting. Okay. One thing that also surprised me on this page was this one over here, the option to build a group order via a shared cart. We know DoorDash enable this, right? We know DoorDash enable this. We know, I think certain apps like Sweetgreen enable this, if I remember rightly, but we're not seeing many actually embrace it fully. It's only been a 1% increase on 2020. Okay, let's go to slide 27. 70% of millennials would buy grocery items if they were available at their preferred restaurants. 70%. Now that blows my mind. But again, people are looking for ways to be able to get better access to convenience. And so if they were able to buy, a carton of milk alongside the dinner, and it doesn't interrupt their ability to get that dinner service to them quickly, well, this is the reason why the GoPuffs of this world are starting to entertain virtual brands as part of their kind of offerings, if you will. Now, currently, 14% of fast casual restaurants do sell associated grocery items, but it's only 14%, right? That's only 14%. Here's the piece about DIY meal kits that we mentioned earlier. Okay, let's keep going. I'm going to touch on this one next. 3 out of 5 consumers expect the same quality of freshness in delivery and takeout as they do in the dining room. Now, I was on stage at Restaurant 365 at the Wilton Theatre in Hollywood in LA just a few days ago. And I was saying, look, this is the way in which the best are going to stand out from the rest. How can you make your off-premise experience as good as your on-premise experience? Are we seriously taking the steps we need to take, whether it comes to the cooking process, the packaging, the way in which we think about food, so that the off-premises experience is as good as what would happen if you were eating that same dish inside the restaurant? I don't think we are. I think there's a lot more opportunity in this space. Now, this is a number that we see different numbers attributed to it, but this one here, 57% of consumers do prefer to use a restaurant's own mobile app compared to third-party apps. So we get different sources on this one all the time. But as I say, more often than not, what we're finding is consumers will want to go direct to the restaurant. That's really, really encouraging. That obviously means better profitability for the restaurant. It means better customer data for the restaurant. And with those things combined together, that should allow restaurants to be able to make a better experience for their guests. Okay, I'm conscious of time. I'm trying to get this through so that you guys don't have to listen to me witter on too much on a Thursday morning. Slide 30 here. Curbside pickup has seen a huge growth for fast casuals. The average industry is for 72%. We're not seeing that actually go up, but we've seen it go down for QSRs. In fact, my closest Chick-fil-A nearby to me doesn't offer it anymore. I'm devastated. I love curbside pickup. I love looking at the long line for people going through drive-through and smirking at them as they wait for half an hour for them to get through that drive-through line while I'm at a curbside pickup spot. Fast casuals are embracing it. Looks like QSRs are not. However, in spite of what we're seeing about the stores of the future, everyone's seen like, who is it? Union Hospitality Group, and what we see with them, they're certainly trying to get more into having drive-through as an option. And when you look at 21% for fast casuals, we're seeing that actually that is starting to drop down a bit. Clearly, quick service restaurants are increasing it. They're increasing the amount of lanes. Not a huge surprise. I think that will go up quite a bit over the course of the next few years as well. Okay, the next category here was frictionless fulfillment. Frictionless is the word, everyone. Frictionless is so important. How can you make the experience for the consumer as frictionless as an Amazon experience or going onto a DoorDash? These guys here, these 26 brands, have been recognized for that. And when you see the likes of Carver, who I think have a great app, Shake Shack, who I was mentioned a moment ago with Union Hospitality, Wendy's, all of these guys are really been able to create a great interface for their consumers, their guests, to be able to have the food given to them in a very seamless fashion. Okay, let's go on to this one here. Slide 32. Only 18% say they have dedicated pickup stations in store. 18%. That is crazy, right? I mean, is it because of just the ease of finding, the ease of being able to help someone collect something from the folks, or is it because of just the layout of the restaurants? I'm really surprised that there aren't more pickup stations in store. However, it is good to be able to see that people are starting to schedule future order pickup. That has started to grow here. We are seeing in-house delivery capability increase by about 9% on the previous year. We were talking recently about the skip cart functionality and the way in which they are helping folks really build a way to get access to additional logistics fleets outside of the big third parties. And then the capability to provide driver notes at checkout. Many of you know I was a dasher in research for the book, and it was really difficult for when you're on a particular platform not to have notes to help you figure out exactly where the customer is. The fact now that a lot of these first-party applications are providing more information to drivers is going to help the dish get to that customer's front door faster. So that's great to be able to see such a lift on that one. Okay, let's carry on here. I want to go to slide 35 next, which is this one here. Sorry, this one, slide 36. Slide 36. Fast casuals, 17% have lower levels of telephonic customer care, but provide customers the ability, 81%, to save multiple addresses. So great that you can have multiple addresses. I don't know about you, but the amount of times I've ordered something and it's gone to a different address that's on my DoorDash system or something, it's a nightmare. But to be able to have multiple addresses, it does allow you to actually have different locations where you might be at different times. A lot of us that are going back into the office have a work office location. We might want lunch delivered to us. And of course, that evening, we might have it delivered back to our home. So having multiple addresses is really important. I'm just conscious that right now I'm putting up this slide here, but I think it's where am I on? I think it is, oh, no, where is that? I thought it was slide 46 where I was trying to get, bear with me. 36. There we go. Yes, this one. Sorry, it's slide 37, my bad. So this is the 17% that I was just referring to. and the 81% is over here, the option to save multiple addresses. So look, these are seemingly simple features, but they are features that exist on the third-party platforms, at least with multiple addresses, that aren't necessarily in place in many restaurants of all types where you've been able to have multiple addresses. Now, this is starting to change. Although, again, for QSRs, it is not. Okay, let's move on. The last one here is around customer engagement and service. Cafe Rio, Domino's, Steak and Shakes, Whataburger, all these guys have been recognized alongside about 21 others. McDonald's is in the list here, Blaze Pizza's in the list, as well as Chili's. Okay, let's walk through some of these. So areas of high growth, which we've seen, we've allowed people now to provide payment preferences and card details in the profile. Now, this was already high because why wouldn't you, right? But now 90% of folks are enabling that. The 10% that are not, what are you doing? You know, the fact that someone's having to actually type in credit card details every single time they engage with you, that's not a great way to create frequency of orders. The next one, option to save multiple addresses for delivery, we just talked about. The next one, capability to view and manage orders. That started to grow here. Now, I'm not quite sure what this one means, but I suspect what it is trying to say is that you're able to go back into the order through the ordering process. And then lastly, over here, where we haven't seen much growth, is where you look at e-cards and certifications. It's gone up 4%, but the fact that first-party platforms aren't providing a process to have gift cards provided, that surprises me. I mean, perhaps we're finding that gift cards aren't as relevant as what they were a few years ago, but nevertheless, it seems to me as an obvious add-on that would make a lot of sense. The option to register for loyalty platforms has stayed relatively stagnant. I think a lot of this is attributed, of course, as to whether each of these platforms, each of these restaurants have a loyalty program or not. And to see 78% of them do is encouraging. But of course, there's 22% out there that perhaps do not, in which case they're missing that opportunity to understand more about their customer and to reward their most loyal customers too. Okay, let's move on here. 58% of shoppers want healthier menu options. 46% of them want to manage their dietary preferences with their preferred restaurants. So again, we talked about this in chapter 2 of the book. It's clearly an important piece to think about. It's clearly important to be able to have a way of being able to help your customers understand the food they're putting into their body. They are looking for healthier options. You need your menu design to accommodate for that, but they also want that knowledge that they are providing to you through their digital ordering process to be something that you remember for next time as well. The other thing I thought was kind of interesting here was 7% offer information on sustainable, eco-friendly packaging. Mark my words, this thing is going to become a bigger and bigger thing over the course of the next few years. And customers are going to vote very clearly on what restaurants are doing to think about packaging. Because as much as we talk about the importance of packaging for first-party conversion, for the unboxing experience, for the ability for you to allow people to find out about your first-party platform, this is going to be an area as well that becomes increasingly important to the younger customers. And Noodles and Company here are one that have been highlighted for what they do in the space, both on food sourcing, hygiene, and packaging. Okay, I don't want to touch on that one. And so at the end here, you'll see the list of all the various different folks that were looked at as part of this study. There are some big names in here, right? So clearly what Incisiv have done is a great level of analysis about first-party ordering. Commendation, I should say, to these guys themselves for pulling this together. I think it's really, really good. And, hopefully you guys thought this was of interest as well. I just love to look at this kind of stuff, as you can imagine. It's really one of these areas where if we don't look at this, we're never going to get to a place where we're able to get more first-party orders as part of the PMix for off-premise. And if we don't do that, then profitability for off-premise is always going to be a bit of a challenge. So anyway, I've gone on for a long time here. I'm going to wrap up now, 24 minutes or so in. Hopefully you found this of interest. Go download this on Incisiv's website if you'd like to go there. I'll put a link below. And also you can find this video available on Learn.Delivery. And of course, if you haven't yet read my book, Delivering the Digital Restaurant, Meredith, my co-author, and I would love you to get a copy because we touch on the themes that we're talking about today, alongside a bunch of other really important stuff about the off-premise restaurant and technology world. And so check it out at learn.delivery, where you can get your copy of Delivering the Digital Restaurant. Thanks for watching.